So we will move on to to call to the audience. Mr. Hernandez, do we have any call to the audience today?
No, we did not.
Okay, no. Okay, then, so we'll move on to action items. Item 4.01, approval of current bond project updates. Dr. Carter.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for posing for the Bond Oversight Committee picture. We have great things getting ready to happen. And I want to do more and more with video and with pictures. And people are saying more and more pictures. So you will be seeing more of pictures from us. And what I was thinking, kind of like what Dr. Trujillo does, we would have a overview of what was passed for the Bond Oversight Committee. So they don't necessarily have to look at the full 2 hours, but we can, in a snippet, kind of talk about what all we passed or what we discussed. So that was part of that. But thank you. So here we are. First to our chair and Bond Oversight Committee. I appreciate the time to talk about some of that status updates. And hopefully you had an opportunity to kind of go over the material. And as you guys know, I'm Dr. Carter. So we're gonna do our grounding, we're gonna do project status, we're gonna do bond communications, and then key dates. And we already know our grounding. The whole reason that we are here is to create joyful, safe place for students and success. We are committed to transparency, accountability, collaboration, excellence, customer service, and trusting relationships. We're going to hear to the Bond Oversight Committee charter, the scope and roles and responsibilities for the meeting. We are partners and advocates. And even just taking that picture, to me, makes us feel more like family. But we're committed to that. I will ask that we hold questions until the end of the presentation, and then also continue to prioritize data requests and evaluate how does it impact votes or the community awareness and transparency. So we have some exciting bond statuses. Hopefully you guys had an opportunity to look at the smart sheets, and I did do what you had asked, Mr. Norquist, about having the blue for complete, the green on schedule, the yellow at risk, and red off track. So that's this, but I'm gonna kind of overview that so we can just not have to go through each and every one. So security, gates, and fencing. We have completed the gates and fencing for Sam Hughes, Kellon, and Ford. We are in the process of doing marquees. We do have 2 marquees that are complete. And we are going back, and you'll see those in the presentation. I did the before and after, as Catherine, that she loves that, right? And I'm sure most of you all do as well. So we will look at what those look like, those marquees. The pavement and parking lots, we are looking at possible SFD funding, so we're holding off on that. We are committed, just like as we said before, if there are dollars that we can get from other sources, then we're going to do so. But there are going to be times where we have what we call drop dead dates, that if we don't have it by a certain time, because sometimes, as you might know, the processes with grants or separate funding can take a long time. And so if we see that it could be like 3 years from now or 2 years from now, we may go ahead and do that based on the severity, or if we feel like we really need to get that project done and we can't wait. So it's kind of a balancing act. And I will let you guys know when we're in those type of situations. Then we also have the field lighting. And we have some really exciting news about Sabino. The field lighting is going to start next week. So that's super exciting. And then it's going to also have the next site shortly after that. So we are on the move on getting these projects completed and getting them started. And we will with Sabino, you'll hear more coming. We want to do some little type of ceremony. I'm also looking to have media, or we're looking to have media for Sabino. I know that's been something that the community has really wanted, so we will be highlighting that as well. And then fine arts, I have a couple of pictures of that with the curtains, and they are gorgeous. I was just super, super impressed with the way they look. And then we have actually completed 5 of the security films. So that project is underway. And the video that you'll see, and I'm not saying I'm an actress. I know you think I am. No, I'm just kidding. But we have a little video with the security film. And I visited 2 of the sites because I wanted to see more about the security film and what it looked like and all that. And so Johnson, Primary, Oyama, Solon, Tom, and Vesey are complete. And then we have some others that have already started and in process. And then I did mention, I don't have on the slide, I see I had an oversight, that with transportation, with the diesel buses, we have gotten 6 in already. So that's super exciting. I was wanting him to line them up, all kind of slanted to the side. I didn't get that. But I did get some pictures of the buses as well. So we are on the move. So let's look at a couple of the pictures. Make sure this is on. Are we? Yeah, it's not. I could turn it off and on and try it again. Okay. It's not going. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, so here, I know a lot of people already know about Sam Hughes, but I went out with Dr. Shaw, I believe. Yeah, Dr. Shaw. And it is amazing the way that they built that fence around the tree. It is beautiful. The fencing is beautiful over there. And so we also had an opportunity to take a picture. We hung up or it was already hung up, the progress was promised, your bond dollars at work. So it was just beautiful. I wanted you guys to see that as well. And then Doolin, you could see the before and you could see the after. So that was a project that was in Q2 as well. And then McGee as well. That's, to me, such a stark difference. And I had mentioned about the curtains, and it's kind of hard to see in here, but those black curtains are stunning, I believe. And if you look that corner in the left corner, I'm sorry. Ooh, I thought I was hitting the pointer. Here it is. Yeah, right here. They're up at the top part of the ceiling as well. So it's very, very nice. And then we're at Dodge, and their curtains where you can see them closed on the ends, and then in the middle picture where they're open. And here's some examples of the security film installations. And now we're ready for the actual video. And this should be the YouTube video. And while that's coming up, I just want to tell you that we got it. Okay, we'll start it back over.
In the bond office. And so we have recently just done security film. So here we are with the principal. Let's go with me. Here we are at Johnson Primary, and I know you want to know what's up in the bond office. And so we have recently just done security film. So here we are with the principal. Let's go with me. Hi. Hello, how are you doing?
We turned it up.
Very nice to meet you. Nice to see you. So we were wanting to find out from you what's up here at Johnson Primary with the security film. What were your thoughts about the experience doing the security film?
Oh, well, so here at Johnson, we take school safety very, very seriously. It's very important for us. So having those security films put on makes us feel more at ease. And we thank the Bond Project for doing this for us. We feel more at ease now because we take safety very seriously.
Well, I just wanted to know, with the security film, tell me a little bit about the experience. Did it interrupt your day?
Oh, not at all. They came after school hours, before school hours. We didn't even know it had happened. So thank you for that.
Well, we are so excited to be one of the 7 sites that we've done, and hopefully this will just continue to have the safety that we need at all our schools.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, and if you couldn't hear what I was asking is, what was their experience with the security film? And first of all, and they were so appreciative to have the security film available. And then I was saying, well, did it interrupt your day? And they said, we didn't even know they were there. And so basically we have communicated and worked with the vendor where they're doing it off hours, not interrupting the classroom. So it's just really good to see that we're making such a difference already, and people are excited about these projects. So I just was wanting to share that with you. I'll get better at acting. I'll get better at lighting. But I just thought it was really good to see what the user, the principal, how they're feeling about it. And so far, it's been just a wonderful, wonderful response. Okay. And let's go to the next. So bond status. As you guys already know, I mentioned about the buses. We already have 6 of the special needs. We are moving forward with the EV bus project. We have been, just so you guys are aware, following what's been happening in the world, external environment. At this time, it is not impacting our funding. We have been really, really watching it, though, and keeping in close contact. Jules is the project manager, and she has been having regular scheduled meetings, which is definitely a best practice. And so we're paying attention, and we have some really great news. In 2 weeks, they're going to start the infrastructure part out at the transportation lot. So it's super, super exciting, super exciting. And then we're still working on the technology. I think by February 14th, I want to say, Robbie, that all the active panels will have been installed. So for the Q2, the 500,000, all the technology that we wanted will have been implemented, which is super, super cool. The HVAC controls, we are making great progress with that. As I had told you, that we knew that it was going to be a little bit longer than what we anticipated because, one, getting all the equipment and the units, and mainly we're doing controls. but it's taken a little bit longer, so I knew it would go into Q3, and I think I mentioned that to you guys the last time, but they're making great progress. If at the time, and we mentioned that, I think, Mr. Gonzalez, if there are any schools that are having any continued issues, that's why I have that $7 million that you guys voted on a couple of months ago, that's available if we identify any schools that still need further help for it to be cooling, then we'll use that money. So here's one of the diesel buses, and if you notice here on the end, that's where, and it was so cool, where the wheelchair lift, it can go down and it can go up, and so I was able to see that in person. And then we have, thanks to Denise, raise your hand. Denise, raise your hand. She don't want to raise it. She's shy. We had the launch of our monthly bond newsletter. It's so exciting. It basically gives you the updates and has pictures, but it's just another form of communication that we could use to be able to get the word out about what all we're doing. And I did share that with Erica, and she thought it was a good idea. So I will also start sharing through Yolanda the bond newsletter as well, but just another way of getting the word out. Oh, and I did want to mention on the buses, we ordered, not through bond dollars, but we ordered, I think, 10 magnets. So on the buses, when they do go out into, service, they'll have the progress is promised, your bond dollars at work on the side. And then we do have one magnet with the truck that I'm now using, because I'm doing a lot of site visits. I have a magnet on there as well. So just advertising more about what we're doing. And as many of you guys know, that this summer is going to be super busy for the bond. I was able, and I didn't have it before I came here. I have to turn in all the information that you guys have wanted to get ahead of time. So since then, I have compiled all the projects that you've approved for Q3 and Q4. So I want somebody to tell me how much money have you approved for Q3 and Q4? You cannot answer, Erica. How much money you guys think that you've approved for projects? Take a wild guess. 14 million. Way low.
50.
Well, way high. Anybody else have a guess? I mean, because you guys do know we've been coming before you since November, and this was part of us having a commitment to be transparent and give you guys more time, right? I want one more guess. It's more than 14 million. Did you say 14 million? Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit. It's more than that.
60 million?
You're a little bit over it. So I'll tell you. We are right now with what is approved at, let me give you the exact number, over 35 million.
Oh,
That's what we're doing for the summer.
okay.
So you guys remember when I said go slow to go fast? That's what we're starting to do. We're going faster. And so for the year, since we've been the bond office right at about 10 months. I will be here a year in March. We will be over 60 million of projects. Right now, we have spent 35 million. So we're doing great. I feel that we are now really trying to make and having an impact. So one of the things I just want to make you guys aware of is that for the summer, because we're doing 3 domestic water lines. Does anybody know the schools that we're doing the domestic? Oh, okay, Catherine. What school? That's correct. And so back in November, my fearless leader and Damon and others, we went to the regional superintendents and we told them we have these major projects that we have for the summer, and one of which is domestic water line, and we need to have the building so we can get our work done effectively, efficiently, and as fast as possible. And so we have a situation where to do that, we don't need students or want students there, and we don't want to have staff there. The only people that would be there is going to be one person, and that's going to be the engineer to be able to help and work with the staff. So it's the domestic water line and sewer on both of those. So we have been feverishly working with staff at these schools as well as operations to be able to move staff into another location temporarily, and to be able to move programs. Summer school, they have now designated where at least for these schools, where they're going to be relocated. And we also are looking at things as far as mail and technology and custodians. There is a huge effort going to make this still a time which we still are providing great services, but being able to get these things done. And it's going to end up every summer, we're going to have to do major projects. People think that, what are the operations doing in the summer? We're working hard. So when the teachers and the students come back, that they can have, the best services and they can start well and start right. So that's what we're doing right now, doing a lot of planning. And in fact, we're going to do a tour on Friday, Mansfield, because that's where some of the 12-month, or pretty much all the 12-month staff is going. So we need to know, okay, well, what's the space they're going to be in? What's the technology? What do they need to bring? Do we need to forward the mail? When are we moving them? I mean, there's a plethora of things that have to happen. And so just want to let you guys know that we got it. We're working on it. Will this be a risk type summer? Will there be things that happen? They will. Anytime you have large enterprise projects, they will. However, what you want to do is make sure that you are covering all the knowns, because there will be some unknowns, and you don't know it until you do. So we're trying to cover all the things that we do know and trying to make sure that everybody feels included and a part of the process. Catherine has already been on at least one or two of my calls. So we're hitting everybody. We're already meeting with custodians. We're already meeting with athletic director. I mean, we have a meeting with Joan, I think next week, for fine arts. Where's the band, if they have any summer programs, or where are they going to practice? I mean, it's a lot of things. So I am and the team super happy and thankful for the collaboration with everybody, because you cannot do these projects alone. You just cannot do it. So just thankful, and just want to let you guys know that there's a lot of work being done on the outside. So you just see the reports here, but we're working super hard. And then we have the virtual town hall planning. I know a lot of people did not get to participate the last time. I do want to remind you that it's going to be April the 3rd. It's a virtual town hall that we will be doing. It's going to be 5 to 6:30, just like the last one. And we'll have a lot more to report on, because back then we only had done Q1, which was, the AEDs, the technology, the HVAC, and then marquees. And look at what all we're doing now. So it's super exciting. So here we got the next bond oversight on March the 20th. We have the quarter begins. Remember, we're doing quarters. So begins on April the 1st. And then we have the April 3rd date, 5 to 6:30 for the virtual town hall. Progress as promised. Your bond dollars at work. So everybody, we're on the move. any questions for me. And I would also appreciate if you have questions, please ask. This is the forum to at least let me know if there's something that you're wanting or needing. I do want to remind you, when I do send out the spreadsheet with the financials, that third tab is all the information on what we have spent money on, what's been encumbered, what's been paid. It's all there. So let me know if there's something that you're missing, but I'm really, really trying to be as transparent as possible. The status sheet that I was telling you, the red, yellow, green, that is our actual, this is my project schedule. I mean, the only thing missing is all the notes, which you don't necessarily need that, but is it on target? Is it not on target? Not everything's on target, as you guys can see. So I will be transparent with you. And I want you to have the answers. When someone asks you a question, if you don't have the answer, that you can get the answer. So that's my presentation's over, now unless you have questions.
I do. I have 3 different questions.
Okay?
So going back to the security film,
Sure.
do like the office staff and the principal get to view that video of like what the purpose is of the security film?
The one that I did?
Yes. Well, no, not the one you
mean
did. The one.
original? We have not put out that video. What does happen, which I think is the most important thing, is that before the project starts, first of all, there's a person in safety that's assigned to do the installations for the security film. Then there's a full team with Safe Haven. They meet with the principal and whatever other staff, office staff. Oh, there you. I didn't see you. Thank you. Do you want? I don't want to steal your thunder.
So, well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Joe Hallam, the Director of Safety and Security, and I've kind of been overseeing this project. A few weeks ago, I was able to get in front of all principals at their various regional meetings, at which time we provided the same presentation we showed in here with a little bit more, including that video of me taking the baseball bat to it and not being able to do it. So they have seen that video and kind of what it's capable of.
Well, I mean, I just think it's a great video so that they know what's going up, you know, that extra, you know, I think it's great for them to have that, as well as once it actually goes up into the school, in that particular school, I would love for there to be some kind of communication to the families, just like, hey, did you know this went up? You know, most schools elementaries have a newsletter. Just, you know, as a parent, I would want to know because that just makes me feel safe for my child.
Yeah, it's one of those we kind of walking a line on, right? We don't want to give up too many details of some of the mitigation or preventative efforts that we're putting forward to our schools to ensure the safety and security of our students and staff. So while we're advertising that there is a security film in to increase safety, we don't want to give up too much about what that film is, the application of it, so on and so forth. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, 2 more questions, Dr. Carter.
Teachers, again, no, not specifically. You know, the information was conveyed to the principals with the expectation that they would kind of convey to their staff as much as they feel they needed to know kind of on that. You know, again, releasing this information to really large audiences is, again, just kind of makes me a little uncomfortable. We want to kind of keep that information, you know,
It makes sense.
close as we can. So.
It makes
All right?
sense. I appreciate you explaining that. So the other question for me, Dr. Carter, is marquees, fencing, curtains that are being removed. What are we doing with those? Are we trying to recycle them in any way, or being conscious of them not ending up in landfills?
I'm not sure on the fencing, and I do know on the curtains. Part of the reason why we're replacing the curtains because a lot of them with the fire retardant, they already passed, you know, the inspection and all that. So I don't know that they're reusing that, but I don't know on the other one.
And the only thing I can add to that is if you saw the curtains, you would know that we wouldn't want to repurpose them as curtains. So it's really just disposal.
But I'm saying, like, could they be used as fabric? I don't know.
Yeah,
You know,
well,
just
I mean,
like,
I guess that's
you know, somebody
yeah.
might
We'll
want
explore
them
that.
to
We'll
do
see- we'll
something.
see
I
what's
don't know if
No,
we're
I
exploring
understand.
those.
Yeah, I mean, if there is some useful, you know, opportunities, then we'll find out what they are and bring you back an update.
Yeah,
So
just,
that was with security, fencing, and curtains. Was there a
and
third
the
thing?
marquees, because most of the old marquees are just like that, they can put letters and,
Yeah,
I know there's places that
we
Like
can
that,
definitely.
Gerson's?
We'll note that, and then we'll come back the next time because I really don't know for sure on that one.
So right now they're just being tossed? Everything's just being thrown out? Even the
I'm-
the fencing's not recycled? I mean, I'm not saying recycled like reused, recycled like for metal or
Well,
something like,
We'll get an answer. I think I
Please.
don't want to talk to something that I don't know. Okay, here goes my boss. Moving out.
So let me speak on the marquees because the marquees are assets of the district. So we evaluate them on their usefulness. So do they have any value? Because we're required by law, we can't just give them away. We actually have to auction them off. So if
well,
the
yeah, even that.
but if the cost of an auction is greater than the value of the asset, then we're losing money, and so we just dispose of them.
Even if it's an online auction? Just,
Even if it's an online, you should.
I
Yeah,
don't know, I hate seeing stuff.
yeah, we have to.
going
We
through,
evaluate every one of these assets to determine can we actually? I mean, we're not looking to make a profit, but we don't want to have an auction cost us X,
Yeah,
and then the
yeah.
value of it is like X times 50%,
Okay.
right? Because then it makes no sense to sell an asset. Yeah, but we maximize a lot of those. I mean, people, for example, have been asking about buying old jerseys. From the football teams and the cross country teams, they want
and
to.
then-
Some students want to take them with them. We can't give them away. So we
Yeah, and some people want like the football field, the
yeah.
turf
So
and stuff
so
like
we
that.
so we evaluate those on a case by case. The fencing is obsolete. There's really no use for it. Can it be used? Anything can be recycled. They
Well,
turn soda
fencing,
bottles
I would
into
think that it could be
hairbrushes
melted
now,
down.
right? So, ultimately, wherever that goes, if it becomes scrap metal,
Yeah, that,
then there's a scrap metal yard, and I'm sure somebody goes and rummages through that.
okay. Well, I just thinking of that company, Gerson's, the one that's like off of the freeway, that they take a lot of quirky, just stuff like that.
Yeah,
and then they turn around and resell
we leave
it.
that to the vendors. We leave that to the vendors. That's part of the contract that we have with them is the collection and
might
disposal. And so they appropriately dispose of it. But when it comes to the marquees themselves, because those are assets of the district, like a laptop or a table, we evaluate those for usefulness. If they're not useful, if there's no value, market value to them, then we do dispose of those appropriately as well. Otherwise, they are put up for auction.
Okay.
If you want a marquee in your front yard, you guys
I might.
you could have one. Your face could be on it, Mr. Gonzalez.
Okay, boss.
Thank you.
We'll put one in front of your
That, I
office.
did want Robbie to speak to the technology because there is a plan on that. Robbie?
Good afternoon, committee. Robbie Hamadi, Executive Director. I did not mean to disconnect the microphone, of Technology Services. For many years now, we've been, for obsolete equipment, technology, whether they're laptops or printers, phones, active boards, we put them in for a third company to either obsolete them or resell them. And if they do resell them, TUSD gets some money back, minor. So if a laptop costs $500 and they sell it for $50, will TUSD get some money back? The obsolete equipment, if there is no resale value, then they'll just destroy the device at their own. That's what we pay them for. But anyway, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer you. Okay, thank you.
So we talked to technology. We'll find out about the rest. That was your first question? Can you talk in the mic?
Is that better? So I liked the newsletter. Is that on the bond website, so where maybe community members may have it? I know it's intended for principals.
So this has been a project in process. Denise, do you want to talk about your vision for the newsletter? I know I'm putting her on the spot. She is, I had the vision of having a newsletter, but she has expounded and made it much, much more. So I'll let you speak to her about what she has.
Hi, my name is Denise Vergara, and I am the administrative assistant for the bond. This project came up as a communication method, just to give a quick update, because we have a lot of principals and office managers emailing us asking, am I getting something this quarter? And was I approved, not approved? And they don't necessarily go to the website and look up their site. So it's just a quick update on schools, sites names and dates and projects that were approved, and kind of a status on a monthly basis. It's not informational as a report, but more as a communication tool. So we started off creating it for the bond planning meetings, and then we showed it to the regional superintendents. They liked it, so we created one for them. Made a couple adjustments, and then they wanted this to go to the principals, so we made adjustments and sent it to the principals, and then Dr. C had the idea of sharing it with you guys. But it's just a communication tool.
So would it be a problem? No, I don't think there's any adjustments, but just so that if anybody wants to see what's happening,
Yeah, we
they
can
glance it.
definitely expand it, especially if we have, people find value in it. We also considered, and I researched, I sent it to you to see if you thought from your vantage point, if you would like it. And so we can just keep it for that. But I'm also looking at because I had gotten requests to have more pictures from the governing board, and so also sending it to the governing board. But we can do one specifically that's more community facing, or just take that same information and have it on the bond website.
Thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you, Denise. I appreciate that. Mr. Gonzalez?
Thank you. Dr. Carter, I'm wondering if you've given any thought.
I can't hear you that well.
I'm wondering if you've given any thought to scheduling on-site tours for members of the committee. Now that we're kind of flowing through these projects, and some of them are not all the way done, but are not completed. However, I was wondering whether or not might be prudent or a good idea for some of us to actually do some on-site touring of the projects.
Well, interesting you mention that. Today, Erica and I were meeting, kind of brainstorming more about the Bond Oversight Committee. And we could do it multiple ways, and I'm definitely all ears on your ideas. But we were thinking to have the Bond Oversight Committee to go on some tours. I know in Tulsa, now I don't know that we could do it here because it's very formalized for the Bond Oversight Committee, but we actually would move the Bond Oversight Committee we would do it at schools. So after the Bond Oversight Committee meeting, then we would do the tour. I don't know if that's an option here to, set it up, because we have to have the mics and all that. But certainly we could set it up where, like, a certain day or after this, we go do tours, or before. But we're more than happy to do that. And I think it would also help you as you talk to constituents to say, I toured this, I saw this with my own eye. I mean, because it makes a difference, like when you actually see the projects. So absolutely, I just need a little bit of input of where and when, and we can make it happen. And what's good too, like when I went with Dr. Shaw, we went to Sam Hughes. A lot of these schools have multiple projects. So some schools have up to 4 projects that's already occurred. So, you got the security film, the AEDs, the marquees, the HVAC. So there's multiple things to see. So just let me know what schools that you're interested in, and we'll just try to set some time, your availability. And of course, we need to, I usually coordinate with the principal, but is there a particular school or something that you're interested in?
Not particularly.
Okay. I'll put it on the list.
And I'd just like to piggyback a little bit on the chair lady's comments on the newsletters. I think the newsletters. I think it's a good idea to put it on the website,
Okay.
and I'm not sure other places that you can make it available to the public. After all, it's their tax dollars we're spending here. So once you get to the point where you have some more informational material on the newsletters, perhaps that's a good thing to do sooner than later.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's very easy for us. It's just, I mean, she's taking the same information, maybe making it slightly different for the target audience, but I can definitely do that. So that'll be one of the things I get done before the next meeting, to get a newsletter out there on the Bond website.
Mr. Nandan?
Yeah. Oh, okay, thanks. So, three things. I just want to reiterate what Mr. Gonzalez just said. I think the idea for a newsletter is great. And if it were possible to set it up as something that had a distribution list, instead of people having to go to a website, I think that would be optimal, because I bet a lot of parents would be willing to sign up once and receive it regularly, but may forget to go month by month to see updated newsletters. And I would love to see it in my inbox. So I appreciate you guys thinking about it, and I think it's a great project. Two other questions, but I think you already answered the first one, so I just want to clarify. So what I had been wondering on my way here was, because there's a lot of change going on at the federal level right now, some of which is making me nervous. And so I was wondering what the impact would be on any of the projects here. It sounds like you've already thought about that, and you're having meetings about it, and there's nothing impacted at this time. So the only other question on that topic I have is, how are people looking for changes in real time? Like, how are they monitoring the situation?
So all I can really answer is the projects, with bond, and so
those are the ones I'm interested in.
So the biggest project and the obvious one is EV buses, because as you know, we have like over $5 million worth of rebates and grants and all that kind of thing. And so we're working with our vendors. So the vendors have what they told us, they're having meetings with EPA, meetings with, the impacted organization or possibly impacted. So it's the reaching out, and we're reaching out to them, and then just really, like everybody else, just scouring every day what's happening, because it's new and different.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other thing that we're doing, and I tried to get it for this meeting and I didn't get a chance to, but we also are looking at any of the grants that we're looking to participate in, any of the TEP, any of the things that we're trying to get funding for. SFD, we're doing all that we can to make sure we're on top of that. I think Ricky has something.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the only other thing I will add to that is we are currently tracking potential legislation to eliminate tax-exempt bonds.
Okay.
So right now, all the bonds that we issue are exempt from income tax to investors who purchase them. And so there is this effort to eliminate tax-exempt bonds to make up revenue at the federal level. So we're tracking that because we're going to go out for a sale in about a year and a half. If that obviously bears out, if that becomes part of federal legislation, it will significantly increase the cost of issuing debt potentially to our taxpayers. So that is something that we are tracking that would affect on the revenue side of the bond program.
Okay, all right, great.
And then tariffs.
Right.
And we're following tariffs because, most everything we purchase is not American made. I mean, or even some of the components, right? Air conditioners, the buses, for example. So we're tracking those right now. Obviously, that seems to be kind of working its way out, but we're following those because that will, if and when those come out, that will significantly increase the cost of us operating the bond program, which will then cause us to further evaluate our priorities around the projects to make the dollars go further.
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate you addressing that, Mr. Hernandez, because tariffs were one of the things that I was actually wondering about. So I'm glad that you've got that in mind too.
Yeah.
So, okay, great. And then final question. To preface, I apologize that I wasn't able to make the last meeting because I wanted to ask this then. For anyone who doesn't know, who is probably almost everyone except Yolanda and now Regu, I was bitten by a spider, and it was probably a brown recluse, and it ended up paralyzing my vision for a week. And for about half of that week, I had no idea what was happening, and that was right when the meeting happened. So I was in touch with Yolanda to let her know, because I had just spent 20 hours in the ER trying to figure it out, and no one could.
Can you see me right now?
I can now, yeah. So fortunately, it was temporary, and basically, basically, the venom got shunted down right above my eye, which caused a swelling in my lymph system, which actually caused my eye to misalign until the venom was able to pull out. But that was, I was a mystery case at Banner for a while. No one could figure out what was going on. It's okay, just so you know why I wasn't here, even though I would have liked to participate. But that's all to say that I had spoken with, and I apologize for getting your name, the gentleman in the pink shirt.
Greg.
Yes. Rick is
Greg.
Ray?
Greg.
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 Greg. Greg.
G-R-E-G.
Oh, Greg. Okay, so Greg, I'd spoken to Greg at the end of our December meeting. And one of the things that I am still not completely comfortable with is the controls for the HVAC systems.
Right.
And you had said we might be able to arrange some sort of presentation on that.
Right, yeah.
And so, and I had meant to ask in the January meeting. So since I wasn't able to do it then, I wanted to ask now, is that something that would still be possible?
Well, it's very interesting that you bring that up, because
Perfect.
just before I came over here, Aaron Kanyas, he is the building systems manager, which includes HVAC. And so he was telling me that one of our controls contractors, Verigy, we've contracted now with Verigy and Delta to do our controls. And so he said that he just was sitting in on a presentation by Verigy today. And there's some really pretty cool things that are going on with that right now with Verigy and the capabilities that it has for controlling our systems. And so I think we could definitely, I could speak with him, and I'm sure Dr. Carter will follow up on this. And then we could set something up so that we could have a presentation about what it does and how it interfaces. Because again, I don't know if I told everybody this or not, but when we were vetting these companies, IT was involved in that whole process.
Okay.
And so they asked a lot of questions, and because of the issues that we've had, we have to make sure that we are just, we're covered completely.
Right.
And so they were really impressed with Verigy and Delta, and so that's why we went with the two of them, just because of their ability to make sure that we wouldn't have any problems whatsoever. It's a valid concern. And so, but we didn't want to do anything unless they were all in on it and said, yep, we'll put a check mark.
Okay.
Because there were probably about 5 vendors, I think, altogether, but we settled on those two just because of their capabilities and making sure that everything that we would be doing would be totally secure. But we can certainly see what we can do to set that up.
Okay, that would be wonderful. And Greg, I appreciate your conversation in December and your explanation now. And just to put a period on it, like I said, there are certain changes that are happening at the federal level right now that make me nervous. And one of them is the rapid and at least somewhat unregulated deployment of artificial intelligence nearly everywhere. It may or may not be related to this, but it would just be nice to have a presentation to see if that impinges on what we're doing or not.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and I do think that once that can be explained a little bit better, I think you're going to be pretty impressed, because it does some amazing things in terms of how we control the temperatures in the classrooms. It even has capabilities of doing, where unoccupied spaces and all of this. It is really pretty fantastic. So I don't want to take a lot of time. I know you got a big agenda here, but thanks for bringing that up.
No, thank you very much for the offer. I appreciate it. Did you have
So
something?
just for clarification on that, are you wanting a vendor presentation? Is that what you're looking for?
Anyone who can explain how the
Or
system
subject matter
works.
expert.
Presumably if the vendor may be the best person to do that, but I'm just interested in anyone who can walk us through basically the parts of the system, how they communicate, and what the capabilities are, and potential risks.
Okay.
But you have more than one vendor, don't you?
Yeah, we have 2. But I'm just trying to understand what he's asking so I can make sure
And
that
Delta is one, who's the other one?
Verigy. Verigy. Okay, so that was your third.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
all. I don't have any other questions. Thank
All
you.
right. Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Okay, I thought you had a question. Did you have a question?
I'm good. Yeah.
Okay,
it's good.
okay.
Any further questions? No? Okay, so if there are no questions, I move to approve these updates.
I did have
Dana?
some information about the disposables.
Let's put a pause on that then.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I was actually at a doctor's appointment because I'm having to go through voice therapy again. No, voice therapy. So I had therapy where I'm coming from. So as far as the fencing goes, our grounds department, the fencing that they can utilize in the future, they're going to keep. The rest of the fencing that they cannot use or is in not good shape, they're going to dispose of. The contractor will dispose of it when it's being removed. So when we do the walk initially with school safety and our grounds department identifies the fencing that can be utilized again or repurposed, and we highlight that with the contractor and they set that aside. So the marquees are really not much that we can do there because the marquees are being built from the ground up with new foundations, and we want them to all look the same. So those that have the old marquees with the lettering the block lettering, the problem with those is the foundation. There's no conduit in the middle to run the electric in, so it all basically comes down and a new marquee gets erected.
Thank you.
So there's the answer to those questions.
I still might want one in my front yard. I still might want one in my front yard. Erica lives here. Just kidding. Thank you, Mr. Vice Sitter.
We're done.
Anything else? Okay.
With that.
So I move to approve these bond project updates.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Advisu. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstain? All right.
I'm Miss Chairman or Chairwoman. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I am going to abstain, and let me just qualify. I am in favor of the majority of everything that's listed here. My only concerns remain the HVACs, which I'm hoping to work out the presentation with, and then with the EV buses. And I just want to put that on record. Everything else I think is great.
Okay. So motion passes with one abstain. Mr. Norquist? Moving on now to item 5.01, approval of Carrillo K-5 Magnet School rainwater drainage improvements. Dr. Carter?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why do I always do? Yeah. 4.02. That's why I need my glasses on. Approval of bond oversight committee meeting minutes. I hope everybody had a chance to review them. So I move to approve the minutes. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Bell. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstain?
I wasn't even here.
I'm just making sure. All right, now we're moving on to 5.01, approval of Carrillo K-5 Magnet School rainwater drainage improvements. Dr. Carter.
Hello, everybody, again. As I had promised, we are providing you guys information so you can review, and if you need additional information, we have time to do that. We had gotten a exception from our risk management department, from Nicole, and so she has a project that I feel and recommend that is something noteworthy for us to look at, as in regards to safety and several other things that she'll talk to you about. So now we'll have Nicole with a presentation for exception.
Hi, can you hear me?
Okay. My name is Nicole Lowry. I'm the risk manager for Tucson Unified. What am I doing here? I'm here because one of my main priorities is to address property claims and liability issues that come before and against the district. And the issue we're about to talk about is both a potential property loss issue and a liability for the district. And I believe that it is becoming more urgent with the development around Carrillo that we will talk about in just a moment. But we do need to figure out as a district how to fund this because there are significant risks to the district. So we'll talk about background, the need, how the school is impacted, and the costs. So just a little bit of background. Carrillo is a 3-story school. So 2 stories, the ground level floor and the third floor essentially are completely above ground, and the basement is partially underground. So when you're standing in the basement, you can look up out of the windows and see the sky, but you cannot see anything because you're partially underground. So currently, when it rains, I don't mean like sprinkling like we get here, but any rain, water is actually coming towards the property and is entering the basement on a repeated basis. So there is stormwater coming inside the building every time it rains. Okay, so obviously you can see why that's problematic. We're inviting germs and bacteria, and things can happen when there's repeated water intrusion into the building. We're damaging our property, and it's not safe. Staff gets there before light and turns the lights on, and they're standing in water. The other real issue is that there are 2 elevator shafts, both with the controls all in the basement, and I would hate for somebody to step down into water that has reached the elevator shaft and become some type of an electrical hazard. So that really is really the main liability and property damage risk to Carrillo. So previously, the school's over 100 years old, so why are we just having this conversation now? Previously, the sump pumps that are in the basement, let me show you this picture. So the highest point of Carrillo is the northeast corner of the property that sits here. Okay, so that is the highest point of the property. And so as water is running, it's running down this street and running towards the school. Each side of the basement has a small door, like a regular door with a small little standing area that has a steps to go outside to reach ground level. It sort of reminds me of like a back east thing where you go down and there's an apartment down underground. Water is actually coming down those steps and into the basement door, and no, we have not had success with any kind of barrier to keep that water out, simply because it's pooling too quickly and too deep. So the sumps are at that bottom basement level in the standing area, but the sumps are not keeping up because the amount of water that is coming towards the school has increased. So there is a fairly new and improved fire department, like their main headquarters is right around the corner. I do believe water is coming from that building in higher quantities, and the DoubleTree just was built behind TCC, so there's been a ton of improvements to the rear of TCC, which is closest to Carrillo, that I believe is also pushing stormwater towards the building, which has increased the amount of water that is coming to the property. In addition, there are no gutters. So the water from all of the property is coming straight down the building, which I think is what was happening for a majority of the time, that the sumps could potentially keep up with if it's just the water from our property, but it's not. It's the street level flooding. It's the water that's coming off the back of DoubleTree. And so the needs for this project are threefold. One, we need to modify existing pavement. so that the concrete can pull water away from the school instead of right now, it's creating like an attractant towards the actual building because of the way that pavement has been installed over the years and settling. So it's actually inviting water towards the building, which we all know as homeowners is not something we want to do. So a school only at a bigger level. We would love to install gutters. There are some challenges there with historical improvements that we need to have approved. And then thirdly, we need a different type of a sump because the sumps are just not keeping up. And so I do believe we are one very large storm away from a potential catastrophic loss at Carrillo's just because of the amount of water that's entering the building on a repeated basis. So that's the need. And then just the school impacts are, I think, obvious. We've just sort of reviewed those. Stormwater's coming into the building. There's water damage. We've had work orders over the last 3 years. The flooring is actually fatigued from standing water over and over that's being extracted out. There is water damage to the basement walls where it's coming through the adobe-ish kind of wall that's like, it's just, there's water all around in the earth because there's no place for it to go. And then we have mechanical room, boiler, and elevators. That would be an extremely high cost to repair if water made it to any of those areas. And obviously we're impacting kids. The school, the classrooms that are in the basement are regularly relocating to the cafeteria, to other rooms that are available because the custodians, who are fantastic, which is, I believe, part of the reason we're not hearing about this more, is the school is handling it themselves for the most part. But it's something that they shouldn't have to do every time it rains. They shouldn't have to go to the basement first and assess how bad the storm drain is. So they are handling it for the most part, but it's only a matter of time before we have a worse problem. So I think this is the last slide. Suddenly this clicker's not working. Oh, the costs. So the cost of all 3 of those options is $140,000. If we are not able to put gutters on the building because of historic reasons, that would lower the cost. But it's my understanding that we are asking for the total potential value should we have permission. I also understand, Damon, is the watershed survey is currently happening. So we've already started a watershed survey of how rainwater is coming into the neighborhood and through the streets. And that is currently underway. So that's good. We're ahead of it. But I'm hopeful that we can get some of these or all of these modifications in place before monsoon season happens, because it's repeated and ongoing. The principal and I are texting all night long when there's big storms. Do you think it's bad? How bad? I mean, it's terrible. Principals should not have to worry about that. Yeah, so that's the summary. Do you have questions?
I was wondering, may I just add something in support of what you're asking right now?
Certainly.
And indirectly in support of Mr. Gonzalez's request earlier, because I didn't know on-site visits were even a possibility for us. So I just decided to ask anyway. And so the principal, Ms. Biddle, was kind enough to let me come out this morning for about an hour and show me around.
Good.
And I just want to emphasize everything you just said. And she asked me if I could just give a quick report on her behalf. So everything you said is accurate. But what I want to add in addition to that is when we walked through, she showed me several different things. So like in 2 of the kindergarten classes, the walls are disintegrating on the inside because of repeated water damage, and they're able to sort of fix it up temporarily, only to have it basically exposed again each time. She showed me the closet in another one of the classrooms where the water had come all the way through the room into the closet and caused severe mold damage. that they had to mitigate themselves, if I understood correctly. And then a couple of other things. She mentioned that during the severe rains, they have to sandbag, which can potentially be a hazard depending on when they're there. And since people aren't there on the weekend, if they have a severe storm on the weekend, it can be much more catastrophic because there's no one to deal with it. And she told me one story of a parents' night that happened when they had a large storm and they had all this flooding, and she was in her suit, but she had to take her shoes off, take a mop and a squeegee and start going down into the basement floor to clear it out while other teachers were taking care of the parents because otherwise the flooding would be too much. I saw the water damage all throughout the floor. And then the one other thing I would add that is interesting is part of this problem seems to have been caused because they had to at one point modify the building for a handicapped access, which is fine. But what it did was structurally weaken the building. So it would do two things. It would allow water to pool in the new areas that had been uncovered, and then it would also cause the water to pool and stress the current pumps in the way that you're describing. So it's a problem because they do their job when they're not really needed, but as soon as they are really needed, they get overstressed and they basically crap out. And one of the pumps we saw, the way the plumbing is run, the line goes like this, up like this, over, and then back down. So if you're trying to pump water, it's best if you are not trying to force it through this sort of a shape and just go directly, right? And then the other thing about the gutters, there's a little bit of gutterage, but where it doesn't help from what it looks like, there's a gutter that's closed, and then it opens right in front of the courtyard, where she said, if you walk in with an umbrella, you have to put the umbrella away as you walk through, and that's right when you're going to get soaked because it's like a waterfall. So I just wanted to emphasize, I think this is a project really worth doing. And the only other thing, and then Kate, I see your hand, I wanted to say is she asked me to communicate. So she's looked at the bond project schedule, and she sees that Carrillo, you can roll your R's much better than I can, Erica, which is, I learned also the name of a fig tree, so that was fun, is slated for bleachers and some sort of a covering for their basketball court or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. She said that they don't need those at all, and she would much rather money go toward mitigating the climate. So she says the windows are very inadequate. She would love to get double paned windows because they go through periods of extreme heat or extreme cold depending on the season and time. And then of course the HVAC unit. So that was her request, that someone actually come and speak to her about what they actually need at the school. So Kate.
Okay. I've been in Carrillo's basement. It's
Okay.
bad. I agree. I agree with what you said, Mr. Norquist. And I think this is exactly what the bond was made for, was for these infrastructure of the historic district that we have, and the changing environments around schools, right? I would like to see as part of this too, what you spoke about of mold mitigation, of flooring mitigation, of having those things included. If we're fixing all of these things, if we're rerouting water, if we're changing the sidewalks, but to have the flooring replaced, have the walls patched, and have the whole project be completed, I'd like to see those things added as well. I'm completely for this and we'll vote yes on this today, but I'd like to see those also added so that the whole project is taken care of, and so that we're not fixing water and then still having water damaged classrooms and walls and whatnot. But that's it.
Okay, I have a couple comments.
Sure.
One, I do believe that Carrillo already has a flooring project lined up.
Okay.
So I stand beside you and say, let's not replace the flooring and then have it get wrecked up.
Right.
So that's part of the reason why I feel like this is a priority to go first. Additionally, the district did do mold remediation because of how wet it was. We did not have the custodian do that. That's not our practice.
Okay.
And so, but I appreciate that. But but they are still mopping when it's coming into the building and onto the floors, and they're using appropriate chemicals, but it's still just not an appropriate use. So I just wanted to clarify, since that sort of is something I sometimes get involved with.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that that's clear, that we're not having custodians or staff at schools do mold remediation.
Okay.
That's not what we do.
It wasn't clear to me in the
Sure.
discussion, so I appreciate that
Yeah,
clarification.
it's just important.
Yeah.
And then also the flooring. And then, what was the last piece? Do you have more? Come on over.
I have a question.
I'm good.
Okay. Flooring. Okay.
So, thank you for that. I'm kind of agreeing with everything everyone's saying, but I want to back up to the watershed survey. Is that being done with the city, or is that just being done internally?
Not internally.
And are we working with the city? Because we can fix all we want, but if the water's going to flood and come down towards the school, then we're wasting our time if we're not getting involved. in the
Definitely a
bigger
great
problem.
question. So the actual watershed, we contracted with Dibble Engineering to do the environmental and the watershed study for the entire area. We're fortunate enough to present that to the state facilities department, and they paid for the actual design of it. We're also gonna, once we're done with the design, we're gonna present the repairs to the state to see if they can cover the construction piece also, because it's one component for the design, the other one for construction. So we wanted to have an opportunity to at least have a backup just in case the state does not cover it. But the good news was the state covered the design piece, and that's with Dibble Engineering. They're going to evaluate the entire watershed in the area as well as new development, take a look at hydrology reports and hydrologic reports to see how that watershed has changed in the area, and really specifically in the courtyard. And exactly what Nicole was mentioning, basically we're looking at a three-pronged approach. The biggest component that we have in the classrooms with the interior, as it stated earlier, where we don't have positive drainage in our pavement section, and you have classrooms that sit below. So what happens is the water becomes stagnant in those areas where we have less than 0.5% of slope in the pavement. So it's basically flat. So when it rains, it just sits there. And as it sits, it just continues to rise, and then it seeps up into the building. Our goal is, as part of the development, is really take a look at the pavement section around the building and provide positive drainage away and provide swales so that we get it off into the street. And that's where the component with the city comes into play. We've been working with city streets and the flood control department. Dibble will be putting together a concept, and we submit it to them, because again, as part of the development for us, we cannot, as part of stormwater, we have to retain a certain percentage on our facility before it goes onto the street, and that's part of the design that is going to take place. And why the city is important, because they're going to review that report and say, yes, that's good, and they'll address it. More importantly, the water that's coming off meets the criteria for subdivision street standards on the city side.
When will we know if facilities does approve if they will pay for the rest
So
of it?
once the design's complete, we'll know exactly what we need to do. As we talked about, it's those three components. One, the removal of the pavement section and redesigning that. Number two, the sump pumps. Once they design and come up with the watershed and the amount of water going through there, we'll be able to identify, one, if the sump pumps are properly designed, if they need to be changed out. And two, it was brought up, and again, that was a good point on the water. For each of those elbows, that's one thing that the designer brought up. You lose friction, and it would be a lot easier for it to be a sloped or a concaved section coming out of the sump pump, as opposed to each of those elbows that come out, because there's friction involved in each of those, and doesn't allow the water to get dispersed from that box where the sump pump is in an efficient manner. So that's going to get looked at. And then the challenge that we have is, if we do go with gutters, we need to go through the State Historic Preservation Office because of the age of the building. The designer has done to recent downtown developments where they had to put in gutters. So they're very familiar with working, with the state Historic Preservation Office in getting that approved. So
Please make them beautiful.
they got to meet the criteria.
They will. So I just want to clarify. So the 140,000 today is a temporary fix. Is that going to get us through one monsoon season? Because I feel like everything you're talking about is going to take how long by the time we,
No, so our, again, great question. Our goal is once we have the design is going to encompass to address the issue one time. And our goal, if we get, that's why we wanted to bring it to you soon as a backup, because if the state doesn't approve it, we want to go to construction like immediately and try to get this done before monsoon season starts this year. And that's the plan with the designers on board. They've already, started doing the digital terrain model. They've done some surveys, some preliminary survey. We should have a final terrain model, which kind of is a mock-up of the area for me to review in about 10 days.
So this, like a lot of the projects, we set drop dead dates that, to get the project complete, we have to have it by a certain time because you got various materials and contracts and all those things that need to happen. So as Damon and also Nicole has already stated, this is a backup plan. And so therefore, if we get the plans, we get the review, the money's not going to be there, but we got monsoon is coming, we know it's going to come, we don't want them to go through it again. So that's what this is for, so we can pull the trigger and not have to wait. And then, wait till we have another bond oversight, then we have to do another governing board. So that's what this is for, make you guys aware, get your support if that's what that's going to be, and then move from there, if that makes sense.
And so this goes forward, it starts getting work done and fixed. What's going to delay because of it? Anything?
I'm not certain I understand what's going to delay.
Possibly delay the project.
Well, not even, so you guys are moving this up to a priority, which is
Yes.
great. I think it needs to be done, but then what other stuff on the bond list is going to get a little behind because we're.
So basically, I already had pretty much stated this is what I'm going to do. There may be 2 other exceptions that come next month, but I had pretty much cut off what I was going to do for the summer because I feel like we're getting pretty close to capacity. And so this is not taking the place of another thing. The priority list, at least for quarter 3 and 4, the priority list is to make sure it just goes higher, but we were already going to do the projects that we've already slated. Because, I've just been giving you guys the same projects over and over, but giving you more and more information as we go.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Gonzalez.
I've listened very carefully to all the testimony here. So I'm going to ask a stupid question. And the stupid question is, if you knew all this was going on for the last 3 or 4 years, as has been testimony here, why isn't it in the project description for Carrillo on the bond?
So we have discussed gutters in facilities department. However, we also knew that some of the concrete and some of the development was still happening. The DoubleTree, the completion of the DoubleTree, it was happening occasionally before. But since the DoubleTree Hotel has been developed and finished is when the real impact changed on a regular basis. And I am a squeaky wheel, and that's part of the reason I'm here, is because I continue to ask, this has to be addressed. I love Principal Biddle, but I don't want to text her anymore at night when it's raining in prayer that the school is okay in the morning. So this is the project on my plate that is an emergency in my opinion. This is the one.
I understand that.
Mr. Gonzalez, would you mind speaking closer into your microphone?
Yeah, and I'm going to ask a question maybe a little more clearly, is that You mentioned that you had several work orders already over the last 3 years. And I assume that someone over at the district understands that this is a project that should have been done or at least worked on for some time. Now, I understand that you have a design project going on now that's going to take some time probably. But my point is that if it's such, and I believe it is, an emergency type of a project, why isn't it in the project description from the very beginning for this bond? Because it's not here.
Great question, Mr. McGuire. I almost call you Dr. Gonzalez, but a great question. As you know, in the bond, not every specific project is spelled out because even with the ones that we have, there's over 1,700 projects. So in the bond book, which I have Carrillo, I said it wrong. I didn't roll the R either. Whatever. Okay. You guys know. Yeah, there you go. There you go. There are areas, because we know we can't specifically list every single project. There are at least 2 areas, well, at least 2 in almost every school that's more general. And the purpose for that is so the principal and, the school can have a little flexibility to be able to let us know the projects that are important to them. One is which on building renovations, so we don't have under building renovations every single thing that would be specific to that school in building renovations. So that could clearly be there. And another general area is furniture and equipment. So we don't actually list every single thing in every single school, what those could be. And so in this case, we would use building renovations to be an area which is included in the bond, but it doesn't specifically say fix the pumps or whatever. So that's kind of how that works. And that's one of the things too I want to make sure you guys are aware of, that we're looking at doing a survey with the principals now that it's 2 years later, so we can get updates because some things have changed, or what was a higher priority, like she said, 2 years ago may be different now. So we are wanting the voice of the principal and the school staff and all that, but we have to have flexibility. And then in Tulsa as well, with that bond, we had the same thing. There were areas, or categories that were general, where the school had input on what they could buy and what was important to them at that time.
Nice try, Dr. Carter, but what you just explained is something we already know, so you're preaching to the choir in regards to that. But let me put it this way. I have a situation here where I'm really frustrated with a process that was used. You weren't involved in doing the priorities, I'm sure, but staff was. And they knew that this was a problem. They knew it from the beginning. It's not here. Yes, I know that you can use building renovations for that. We can take maybe 2 items here and move them to that budget item. We know that. But the question for me is the frustration that somebody just either didn't care, didn't pay attention, something happened, or it's not here where it should have been, because that is a very, very high priority regarding safety of students. And I'm concerned about that. I want to support whatever we do here. I'll tell you that. But I'm not happy with the process of leaving this item out.
Okay.
Dr. Carter, may I really briefly? Mr. Gonzalez, I get your frustration. I understand it. One thing I would like to state is I've had a similar conversation with Dr. Carter. She and I speak often, and she has mentioned to me how we are doing new principal interviews. We have to keep in mind that when the bond book was put together, this was about almost 3 years ago, when we started planning that they were going to do the bond campaign. There were different principals in the schools. A lot has changed in that time. So she is just now getting in there, figuring okay, this is a priority. So it's not that somebody dropped the ball, just the needs have changed. in that time, and she's trying to address them as she's being made aware of them. I understand. I've had the same questions, and I think a big part of it will help with the new interview she's going to be doing, trying to get more insight from schools. Okay, you had this on your list. Has that changed? Or is this still the same? But she's, I think a year later, we're all still it's still kind of new. We're kind of getting in the routine of things, figuring things out. But I think I'm confident saying, Dr. Carter has a plan of how all these big projects aren't going to be, they may still come up randomly, but she's more aware of what to be looking for at sites.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
if that
understand
helps.
it, and I accept some of that explanation. I do have a couple other questions related to this. In regards to the County Flood Control District, Damon, do they have jurisdiction over this area?
No, it's not in the county. It's in the city. And the city has, the city streets department is the one that's going to be
But
reviewing.
county flood is countywide. It includes cities.
Right, this is an unincorporated, so we are dealing with the city of Tucson Transportation Department and the city of Tucson Streets and Maintenance.
Okay, so the city of Tucson, you had, I understand, some discussions with the
Yes.
city of Tucson and their planning department. Have your discussions included any desire to at least partially fund this project?
No, until we come up with actually providing the information on the design side so that we know where the additional water is coming from. We really can't have them come to ask them for funding for that until we know exactly what the watershed is, how the development, how that's impacted, what that if the saturation rates has changed with the new development. So there's a lot of things that we've got to uncover as part of the design so that we have the facts in front of us so that as we're going through that process, once we're done, the report is going to speak for itself, and then we sit with the city, and then that'll be, if we need to ask for funding from the city, definitely we'll do that.
Do we have any timeline here in terms of when you will be completing that design and the study so you can start?
Yeah, so the terrain model, which is probably the biggest component, is going to be done in about 10 to 12 days. Once they do that, then they'll be able to fully evaluate the watershed and see how much water is coming to the site. And then once they do that, then we'll evaluate the 3 different approaches that we discussed and see how those mitigate the issue, which the biggest component is, the sump pumps, which I think based on the development could be undersized. And that's something that was brought up when we did meet with the city. We talked about, actually it was our designer that brought up the fact that the saturation rates may have changed. So we're not getting as much water that's leaking in and it's coming off. And the slopes have changed along the front side of Carrillo. So that's another piece, but all that's going to get evaluated in the design.
So I assume from your testimony here that you really don't have a timeline. It won't happen between now and the time the monsoons begin?
Oh, yes, we
June or July?
anticipate, yeah, so once the terrain model's done, which is in 10 days, the designer said he anticipates having some design for us to review and the city probably 3 weeks after.
So in other words, and that's what I had spoke to last time, just kind of talking about the drop dead date. So we have to decide, I thought we said the end of March.
Yeah.
So by the end of March, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And if the funding doesn't look like it's going to be there, then that's where the backup comes into, where we would do that or have a alternative on what we can do to try to reduce or mitigate the issue.
So will $140,000 be sufficient?
Yeah, so taking a look at it, what we've seen with our pavement costs, and we got some costs from the city of Tucson, as well as costs for the sump pumps, as well as the gutters. we feel confident that we can get that done.
One final question for Dr. Carter.
Yes.
Have you had a conversation regarding the changes here that you're proposing with your bond counsel? Is it allowable?
With the who?
Your bond counsel. You have a bond counsel, don't you? An attorney?
Yeah.
Yeah, our bound counsel knows about these changes. When the language of the ballot actually doesn't even have these categories on there, right? The language of the ballot has general categories, and we include all of the categories in the statute. So moving between categories is not an issue as long as we're not doing anything that the ballot itself did not approve. So from a bond counsel perspective, there are no issues.
That was my question, to make sure that whatever we do here is actually authorized by the bond itself that was voted on. So I'm good to go. Thanks a lot. Oh, and by the way, I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody or cast aspersions on anyone. I'm just kind of venting a little bit, you know? Thanks.
No problem.
And may I follow up with one more point then, just to sort of emphasize Mr. Gonzalez's earlier question. And I know I mentioned this earlier, but it did strike me when I was talking to Ms. Biddle that she said this twice actually in our conversation, that no one from the bond, I don't know, is it a bond committee, a bond task force? What's the formal name of the bond group that actually...
We're the bond department or bond office.
Okay, the bond office. So no one from the bond office had ever actually approached her personally to talk about her needs. And so, you know, just to reiterate one more time, she said they were slated for these two things, bleachers and the covering over a sports area. And she said they absolutely don't need those. There's no reason for them to have them. But there are other things that she feels they do need, like the temperature control mitigation that they're not slated for in any way. And so I am also not trying to point fingers, and I'm sure she wasn't either, but I just want to encourage the bond office going forward. It would be great if there was a way to start communicating directly with the principals of the schools, just to, because each one will be different, right?
So
I was going to say, I'll reiterate what I did say. They worked when we originally they started the campaign for the bond. That was about 3 years ago, and they were going off of work orders then. I believe Ms. Biddle has been there. I don't think she's been there that long, maybe 2-3 years. So again, like I said earlier, a lot of admin in schools has changed since then. That's why Dr. Carter's working on connecting with who's there now, what the needs are.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And like I said, I'm also not trying to point fingers at anyone. And that's why I say going forward, you know, I just think based on her feedback that I got today, it would be great if there was a way to just start to incorporate more communication to get feedback from the people who know the areas the best that we're working with.
So as I mentioned, that's what I'm already doing. So the other thing, I just want to reiterate, everybody, we have a 10-year bond. We're 10 months in. I'm brand new. The bond office started with me. Now we've hired additional staff as well as doing projects. So I went to the regional assistant superintendents and explained, because there's one of me in 88 schools. I can't get to everybody all at the same time and run the project. So what we agreed to with the regional...
We're just going to have to Xerox you.
Oh, well, if you figure that out, let me know, because I am so interested. But what I did with the same concern, you know, I have the same concern. I want to hear and I want to meet every single person, but I can't do that all at once and run the projects and provide you what you need. And so the strategy, I have to do a strategy, is that I had started back in November, especially as we start coming up with the different projects. I started with the regional assistant superintendents, meeting with them. Then I went to all of 5 regions and did just the readouts. And then we said in January, because remember I had to reprioritize everything. You guys don't remember. And it's 1,700 projects, right? Because I don't want to go meet with principals with no information or nothing to really provide. So I had to go back. I had to go and do the reprioritization. And so we decided in January, that's when I would start going to individual principals. We have had multiple, some of which I know that Erica's went to some of the meetings and others, but so we have started that process, but I can't get it done all at once. So that's why I mentioned to you guys that I want to do another principal survey. And in that survey, they can put what they feel their needs are, how it might have changed, what would, so it's happening. It just can't happen all at once. And so I trusted our risk management when they come to me and say that we have a risk to the district. I'm feeling, and she's talked directly to the principal, I was feeling that that was going to be sufficient. But just know this. I want to speak to everyone, but I have to find ways in which to do it, and that survey's one. But I have a full schedule with every single principal on it, which my administrative assistant is starting to make and plan these meetings. I just can't. And so I'm saying, Dr. Gonzalez, if you figure out how to, some way where we can come, let me know. But it's in the works. I just want to.
It's called 24/7.
Yeah. So, Ms. Carter, I just wanted to say thank you for your work because I realize that you do have a plate full. And part of the reason I say I said what I did earlier is I don't know the organization of the bond office, and I don't know if you have anyone to delegate to, for example. So if you're the only person who's able to actually speak to people and you've got 88 people, that makes sense. I didn't know if you had like 10 staff or 5 staff, or what your resources were.
So let me clarify. I have an administrative assistant. All my staff is really there. She's directly to the bond. Raise her hand. That's Denise. I have Yolanda, which is not my direct. We're dotted line. She's the purchasing specialist. Where is Ben? Ben was here. I have an accountant, and I have me. And I'm trying, and I whined and cried to my boss and said I need a program coordinator, which I'm trying to hire. So that's what you have with brand new starting in June. I think what we've done is phenomenal, but it takes time. And so until I really get a good grasp, I don't want to delegate that to anyone. I want to know boots on the ground, and that's how I've known what to do so far because I'm out there myself. But after I get these initial meetings, then I can delegate. But until we get that, I want to be the one so I can report to you guys and we can really be transparent, collaborative, and accountable.
Okay. Great. Thank you for the clarification.
Madam Chair. Is there any specific language that Dr. Carter needs for a motion to approve this? Any specific language other than what is here?
Yeah. You want me to put a motion forward?
Well, there is a motion for it, but did you want to speak?
I just want to say that I will pledge to you, I learned a lot through this process also, and I feel more comfortable and capable to raise the flag to Dr. Carter about things that are emergent to the district. And so I will tell you that if this comes again, it won't take this long because I understand this process is new. And so you have my word that if there are issues like that, I will seek that avenue.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think you're also extremely aware of the major issues like this at the district.
So I think it's a motion to approve the recommendation to the governing board for rainwater drainage improvements to Carrillo K-5 magnet schools as presented. It's the motion.
I put forward the motion that Dr. Carter just stated.
Second.
Did you get that, Ms. Hernandez? Okay. Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Anthony, oh, I'm sorry, he's not here. Catherine Arvizu,
Yes.
Don Bell,
Yes.
Owen Bro Sanders,
Yes.
Cindy Coleman,
Yes.
Luis Gonzalez,
Aye.
Raghu Nandan,
Yes.
Peter Norquist,
Yes.
and Erica Miranda Carter.
Yes. Motion passes. I would like to request, though, whenever we do know if we are not using the backup plan, if we can be updated on that, please. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 6.01, future meeting dates and agenda item. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, March 20th. Everyone okay? Is there any discussion or anything anyone would like added to the agenda? Okay, I would like to make a comment. I guess this is the time. I love that you went to speak with Ms. Biddle at Carrillo. I personally have tried to make it out to some of the sites with Dr. Carter. I think it's important that we do go out there and we see what is happening. However, I don't want to overwhelm our principals or staff out there. So I would like for us to either coordinate these visits with Dr. Carter beforehand. You can either reach out to her or Denise, just so that, I might have showed up later, or, Catherine, somebody, they're busy, they have their hands full, and I would like to request that we do schedule those with Dr. Carter.
And
Mr.
make sure
Hernandez.
that if you're going to do that, you don't have a quorum.
Right, of
Okay.
course.
So
Of
please,
course.
please coordinate to Dr. C, because if you have a quorum, then we get into all kinds of
No,
open meeting law
thank
things.
you for the the reminder.
Madam Chair, can we add on the agenda an update on the Carrillo project for the next meeting?
I'm sorry, I
An
couldn't hear you.
update for the Carrillo project for the next meeting?
Will there be updates by that next meeting? Okay, we'll add that to the agenda. Any other comments, questions? All righty then, so.
Madam Chairwoman, just a reiteration to
Yes, sir.
hopefully schedule that presentation regarding the HVAC controls. Yeah, no, if we can just get it in the pipeline somehow, I would be
We'll
happy
keep
with
it on
that.
there,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so I move to adjourn. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by
1,000
Mr.
times.
Gonzalez. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? No, motion, I'm sorry, meeting's adjourned at 2:53. You distracted me with your eyesight. I'm trying to.
Distracts me too. Yeah, thank you. See you later. Yeah, good to see you, Rock. Have a good rest of your week. Have a good month.